Boy, the way Glenn Miller played.
Songs that made the hit parade.
Guys like us, we had it made. Those were the days.
And you knew where you were then.
Girls were girls and men were men. Mister, we could use a man like Herbert Hoover again. Didn't need no welfare state.
Everybody pulled his weight.
G.R.O. LaSalle and great. Those were the days.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Brick Pit, the podcast that you accidentally clicked on. I'm your host today, Jason, and joining me is the man who is still trying to convince us that Jinkos are coming back, Josh.
I mean, they are back.
As long as you're wearing them, right?
As long as I carry that torch, they never left.
And also with us is the man who won't stop talking about the first time he bought a BlackBerry, Adam.
The fruit. It was so tender and delicious and juicy. It's indescribable, really. I mean,
You know, as a side note, I know this is a movie podcast, but I don't really have respect for people that buy BlackBerries. They're so ubiquitous around where we live. You just pick them up. You wait till they spray by the train tracks, and then you pick them and eat them fresh with the DDT
good pesticides all over them.
Flavoring.
Hey guys, you remember when I did that intro?
That was awesome. I wish we could go back to those days.
Yeah, they just make them like those anymore, man. And that is a terrible segue into our topic today, and that is nostalgia. We've referred to how big of a killer nostalgia can be in some stories, but also how it could also prop things up. Well, I'm just going to say nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
Yes,
it is. We love nostalgia for the simple fact that it makes us feel good a lot of times. There's a lot of nostalgia in our entertainment because by the time a lot of people get in control, they're able to do the things that they kind of wanted when they were kids or bring those things back. And so that's why we get, 400 Transformer movies from Michael Bay.
Or this podcast, which is a retrospective of film.
Yes, that talks about the same 7 films every episode. I really thought a lot about this episode, and because like you said, nostalgia is a drug. Everyone likes it. We have a friend that recently had their appendix taken out. It was the first time they had morphine, and they're like, "Oh, I get why people do drugs." Like, yes, but it can be beneficial in certain doses. But I think we're at the point where we are just
We're mainlining it.
We're strung out junkie culturally, and I think culturally it's rotting us. But there's nostalgia, which has a more wistful, bittersweet longing for things that are past, and I think that has somehow been supplanted with reference.
Yeah.
It's in the same vein, but I don't really necessarily think it's nostalgia, but it's like fentanyl cut with rat poison. It's not pure. It's kind of like the member berries with South Park. But it's gotten to the point where the references are beyond. It's almost like gatekeeping in a weird way, and it's like because the Flash, when they had the Nicolas Cage Superman fighting a spider, you have to be so far outside of just watching a movie to understand it. Yeah, and it's like the Deadpool movie That's all it is. It's like, oh, look, we got Channing Tatum as Gambit because a movie he never got to make. Like, what are we doing? That's it. It's like hitting those same notes, but it's like it's a real false nostalgia.
That's an interesting dichotomy because I think so. There's examples of where obscure cultural reference, not as necessarily a gatekeeping mechanism, but as we see you very obscure niche person. Two examples real off the top.
But that is gatekeeping in a way because you're in the secret club.
Sort of. So think about Mystery Science Theater, how they would do these like where even if you're the most like out there person in the world, you probably only get 75% of the references they make.
Sure.
But for that 25% that was like outside yours, somebody somewhere's on their couch going, "Oh my, holy crap, they got, they get me,"
Well, but I think now that they're so lazy and so they're made for guys to point to their significant other and then point to the screen and say, "Oh, Nick Cage was going to be super,"
right.
and the significant other go, "Why did I ever get with this person?"
Yes, people, just put in your head all those memes you see of like the guy talking to the girl and the girl's face just like flat.
Yes. That's what I imagine. Half the audience at Deadpool was the girlfriend dragged or wife and going, what? And having some person explain to them what they're seeing. It's a very weird thing to hang your hat on. It's like, you could have spent your time learning to code or reading Shakespeare.
That was a bad reference on your part for two very good reasons. One, you didn't spend your time on anything else. Two, just the learning to code.
Again, we're completely guilty of this. Yeah. I don't think we've ever made any bones about it. Like we're
right. If we could be millionaires on obscure trivia, we would totally take that train, right? But
at least we're aware of it. And again, it's in doses. It's not bad.
Yeah, your point is right because Mystery Science Theater was contained. It was a
niche audience to begin with,
right?
Yeah.
It felt like you were hanging out with your buddies. I guess that's the difference. It's not gatekeeping. It's like these are my people. But now everything, like even Marvel, we've talked about this before. How I didn't grow up reading the comics. I was just not a comic book kid. I always kind of felt a couple steps removed from all the references in Marvel, even as the movies progressed. Even though I could follow the plot of the movies and I understood what these connections were, and I'm culturally aware to know how these things interact. I never enjoyed them as much as, say, our friend who's like the Marvel super fan because he read all the comics and he was like, "Oh, this is from comic 387 where this happened to this, and that's a reference to that." And I'm like, I love that for him that exists. But now they've commoditized that knowledge.
Yeah.
So that whatever your geekdom is, there's a way to exploit you as an individual to get money from you.
I think that's a very astute point. They've learned to commoditize it's not even nostalgia. It's
fandoms, basically.
Yeah. But again, it's almost like synthetic nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really started with, was it X2? The second X-Men movie when they went to San Diego Comic-Con. And that kind of started the transformation of San Diego Comic-Con into what it is now.
I was just about to mention how I think Comic-Con is probably the driving force for this.
Well, and it wasn't always.
Right.
Because when X2 came out, that was like
it was a flashpoint.
Right. And it made a stir. Because there were, there were people that were like, well, this is for comic books, not comic book movies. And now the opposite is like,
right.
Yeah, there's a big problem because San Diego Comic Con started essentially in the basement of a hotel in San Diego. And it was a bunch of comic book nerds and sellers and all that there. And that was it. And it grew to one of the largest or the largest fan convention, in the world, and still it wasn't what it is today. And it's when Hollywood realized, oh, we can just drive down to San Diego and throw some stars in there, and we can advertise our next big film, and it creates all this buzz and everything for us. And now it's to the point where, like, I believe it's Mile High Comics out of Denver, which has been going to the San Diego Comic Con since the 70s. They can't afford a table there anymore.
Crazy.
That's insane. Well, and it's also like Comic-Con has like become a brand, and now every city has their Comic-Con. And then like you'll see like wrestlers I'll forgive because they're tangential too. And I like meeting wrestlers, but there'll be people that'll be like Days of Our Lives, soap star, and you're like, what? Why are
it's
you?
just a
why
pop
are you
culture
here?
convention now.
Yes, yeah.
For all things pop culture that we can commoditize, and again, find the niche fandom that we can exploit for income.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it's become.
And it was a game of inches because it's like, well, we're gonna have sci-fi people here. It's like, oh, well, comic book sci-fi, okay, and these, well, let's get the Game of Thrones people, okay, and then now you've got like the cast of Frasier there. You're like, what? They don't want to be here.
Get his name out of your mouth.
Kelsey, my man, what's going on? Why are you at Mississippi Comic Con? Like, I don't even know. I'm contractually obligated to be here. Why are you here? Is the question.
There is a regional one up here. Oh no, it's actually called Nostalgia Fest. I can't. That's funny. Anyone can Google that, I guess. But it's like Mr. T and the Fonz, and it's
that actually sounds pretty good.
And what's also amusing to me about it is you have to buy your autographs in advance.
Yeah, that's a big thing that started happening at cons too, and I think Wizard, which used to be like the comic book magazine in the 90s, and they kind of moved over to doing conventions when the magazine market fell through for some reason. Like they started getting in trouble with that because they would overbook. And I think like in New Orleans one year they had Matt Smith from Doctor Who, and they overbooked, and so they were turning people away who had already paid like $300 to have a picture with Matt Smith. Matt Smith apparently got very angry with them and argued with them. Was like, you're not just making yourself look bad, you're making me look bad because it looks like I've taken their money too.
I remember that convention too because I was like, ooh, Matt Smith, ooh, $300. Well, I paid less to meet Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that blew me away. I was like, how, Karen Gillian? Okay. Yeah. Let's not pretend.
But Captain Kirk's been Captain Kirk for, over 50 years.
Yeah, but I mean, I think he was only like $90 or something.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
It's ridiculous how much they figured out they can nickel and dime the fans, and it's gotten to the point where just a regular middle class person can't go there anymore and meet their favorite actors. It's getting to where only the rich nerds can afford it.
Well, and every year it gets like less and less. When my kids were real young, we met what's her name, Marion from Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah,
Karen Allen, and my oldest daughter was dressed like Marion, like she cosplayed, and she sat with us for like 10 or 15 minutes, and we took our pictures and stuff. It was like really great interaction. And then now it's like they're like,
keep it moving,
keep the line moving.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't, thanks.
What one of the last sort of vestiges of this that's kind of, I would say, closest to what it would have been in the old days is the National Book Festival in Washington, D.C., where you can meet your favorite author. And it's like that. You stand in line to get your book signed, but, once you get up there and it's your turn, they're not rushing you away.
Is Terry Gross usually there?
Yeah, she is. We're good chums. She drives down from Philadelphia. We met Mark Brown of Arthur fame.
Marky B.
And he sat and told us about the history of how he hides the kids' names in the illustrations in his books, like his kids, and wrote a not really nice inscription out to my daughter, just things like that. And one of her favorite authors, whose name Gordon Corman, I think is his name. that was a great interaction for her to meet her favorite author and have a long chat with him.
Yeah.
Just cool stuff.
That's starting to turn too. Cause years ago we went to, it was like Maple Street Books or something in New Orleans, a real tiny bookstore off Magazine, and met Brandon Sanderson. He like read a chapter from his upcoming book and spent a ton of time with us. He had a handwritten notebook. Like he said that in the time when he flies that you can't have your electronics on, he just handwrites just to not waste time. Somebody was like, "Oh my God, can I look at it?" He's like, "Yeah, here." Just handed over his notebook of ideas. Like, "Yeah, read through it. It's cool if you read the handwriting." And then, by the time we got to Dragon Con one year, it was we ran into him by chance, and I fanned out. But it was, he wasn't having those interactions with people as much anymore. And I think some of that is just, as fame grows.
Yeah, Josh was bird dogging him the whole time when he was talking to another fan.
Hey, man, he's like my favorite author. He's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah, you weren't looking stalkery at all.
In that group, I still look pretty normal. At Dragon Con, let's not. I still look like a middle-aged dad that was it. Like, people were like, "Did you bring your kids here, sir?" I'm like, no.
I went to the National Science Fair once and met Michio Kaku.
I met Michio Kaku too.
Okay, well, let's see if yours compares to mine, because I get my book signed and I was like, "Hey, I just got I don't remember. It was a very simple question, right?" And he says, "I don't answer questions at these things," and then handed me the book. I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, I was a little disappointed at Michio.
He was standoffish, I would say, is the best way I would describe him.
No, the most standoffish I had seen was David Carradine.
Oh, yeah.
at Dragon Con. This is in the early mid-2000s. And he was at his table in the hall where you're decided to sit there and have people come up to you and you autograph and talk to them. There was literally no one around him. There was one girl standing in front of his table trying to talk to him, just fanning out over him. He's reading the newspaper. And she's asking him, "So where are you doing anything? Is anything coming out?" Kill Bill comes out in October. that was literally his interaction with her. It's like you're being paid to be here just to say hello to these people and sign some stuff.
Bill Nye's a jerk like that too.
Stop reading Marmaduke for a second.
Who's like that, Adam?
Bill Nye.
Bill Nye's a jerk.
Yeah, no, he is really, in person, he's a real butthead.
I've heard that.
He's the Bill Murray of science people. So I think we're kind of off topic, but we are talking about things that make us wistful. Remember the time we went to Dragon Con?
Well, like every wistful thing for middle-aged white guys, it just devolves into things that make you angry. You know who else makes me angry?
I hate people having fun. Why are they taking this not serious thing not serious enough?
Hey guys, remember when we had that show we're talking about nostalgia?
I don't ever listen to our show.
Yeah, that's apparent.
I don't even listen to the show I'm in.
Yeah. While you're doing it.
Yeah.
But talking about nostalgia, like I said, it's something, it connects us back to times that we think were better. And those times are generally when we're children or, teenagers. And I think a lot of that has to do with, we had little to no responsibilities. When you're an adult and you start having to pay bills and having to worry about, what you're, if you're going to be able to afford the light bill or rent, and making decisions between eating out or putting a tank of gas in your car.
Adam started at an early age in the coal mines, so he has a little bit.
It wasn't the coal mines per se, but for me, these things aren't necessarily like hearkening back to the things that I really enjoyed were escapism for me then. that took me out of whatever was going on in my life. And so it was like the one part of my childhood that was fun. And so my nostalgia is like, I can pretend that my childhood was just the fun parts by revisiting those pieces that were fun. You know,
there is the rose tinted glasses.
Yeah,
to the whole thing. There is, but it's interesting that it's like it does a lot of nostalgia boils down to moments. Like I get more nostalgic over music than films, but like
it smells too.
Yeah, and I mean the older I get, like if I listen to a certain album, I'm instantly transported to being 15 years old and getting up early on a Saturday. It's like a specific day.
Yep.
You know, and I'm driving to my friend's house to play the Star Wars role-playing game. We played all day. A great day. And here I am. It's like over 30 years later, and I listen to those songs, and it's like you're still there.
Yeah, music has a deep connection, I think, to us. That's why you always see people always say, oh, well, you know, music was never better than it was when I was a teenager or in college or something like that. Because it's very personal, like the music that we listen to.
It's also survivorship bias, too, in a way. Because we've talked about, like in our Saturday Night Live episode, like way back in season 1, that everybody thinks that their version of Saturday Night Live was the best because you don't remember the really crap nights.
Yeah.
Like where every single sketch just didn't land. Like you just, in 30 years you forget, or it's not showed in highlight reels.
Yeah. And it's the same with music. Like everybody remembers the Beatles, but they don't remember like the 100 knockoffs that came around and that just were never as good. We always remember those high points.
Mm-hmm.
For every Nickelback, you had some crappy Creed.
I understand that reference, but I will pretend like I don't, so I can continue this conversation with you.
And I just want to point out, I'm not one of those people that started making fun of Nickelback because everyone was making fun of Nickelback. I was making fun of Nickelback when it came out.
There's some good Nickelback songs. They're not all terrible.
Really?
Yeah,
are there?
Okay. Yeah, there's some jams.
Honestly, at this point, all I know is the memes. And I know why, for some reason, I know how the name came about. And it's like, that's information that no one needs to know. And I cannot, excise it from my brain. I sound
like I don't need to know it, so I'm not going to ask. But
I'm telling you now.
No, I don't want to know. I'm good.
Yeah, Josh doesn't like it when he has to get out of his comfort zone of, Juggalo songs.
And CCR.
Insane Clown Posse.
Well, there's probably at least one Juggalo that listens to our podcast because they're too stupid to change the.
They're still trying to figure out how the magnets in their headphones work.
I'm sorry, John G. Juggalo. Tell Violent J. I said hello.
Next Fago's on us, bud.
Well, so nostalgia is always a good genre of movie. Like I said, there is bad to it. There is good to it.
Well, I wouldn't call it a genre. Like I said, I think it's more of a crutch. It's more of a gimmick, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's.
Well, I mean, one of Josh's,
I wouldn't go so far as say gimmick. I would say that it's a tool.
It's a set piece. To me, it's part of this. It can be as much as like
it depends on how it's done.
Right, like
done
if New York City is its own. Sorry,
it's like a little Tony Chachere's in your gumbo. Done wrong, it's like a little Tony Chachere's in your ice cream.
I've never heard it pronounced like that. Chachere's? Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Well, my hillbilly.
Am I wrong, Jason? No, it's Tony Chachere's.
I assume you're right, but the hillbillies I grew up with was Tony Chashers. That's how we were taught to say it. Shashers.
What kind of monster calls it that?
My dad.
Well, okay.
And I've called it that for years. I didn't know there was another way to say it. I knew what you meant instantly. Like I was like, oh.
That's all I've ever heard it called. And we're down here close to Louisiana.
where you're going to know, right? Yeah, I was up.
Yeah,
further
look,
north.
according to Google, it's Satries. Coney Satries, just like
Fantastic.
I said.
Okay, I'm glad to know
There are
that.
probably people listening to this going, I don't even know what Tony Satries is.
No, there's not. There's no one because we're all three here. So
that does bring out. That doesn't mean that that's actually phonetically how it's supposed to be pronounced.
We know.
Because we have some people that are coming down from a company that we hired to do a new software upgrade, and so they're flying in, and there's like, yeah, we're going to be flying in close to Biloxi. Like, now, first thing you need to do is the second that plane lands, stop saying Biloxi.
Well, it's like the Nolans thing.
Yeah.
But I remember I started doing, back when I did claims, I started doing Louisiana claims, and I got the coolest name. If you're listening, I'm sorry. I think the statute of limitations is up. I'm just going to say your name. It was Brock Champagne. And and so I called him. I'm like, hey, Mr. Champagne. And he goes, it's Champagne.
Yeah.
I was like, if that was my name, I would totally be Brock Champagne. That's like
Josh was imagining a wrestler coming in with like robes.
And he still looked like that because he was a shrimper. Anyway.
Back to nostalgia.
This is a movie podcast.
Yeah.
You didn't know.
allegedly, I don't know.
Allegedly.
Well, I say it all depends on how nostalgia is used. I think there are movies that use it as a jumping off point
to
set a story in a certain time or event or something like that to help evoke the emotions that lay the foundation for the stories. And then you have things that just like, hey, remember this? Remember, let's do this again. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to copy and paste what was in a previous. That's what I have the issue with the J.J. Abrams Star Wars. They're just copy and pasting and just a little cosmetic makeup on it to make it look not exactly the same.
Yeah, I think The Force Awakens is a great example, and I don't even have a real problem with it. I don't think it was by a great movie, but at the time when it came out, I was fine with it being a rehash because it was kind of a soft reboot of Star Wars.
I was very fun.
You also had the expectation that they're going to do something else after that.
Right.
Yes. Because I remember
harder
leaving
on
out
it because we saw how it all worked out.
Right.
I was very excited about it when I watched it.
I was too. I was like, oh, cool. We got. I thought Finn was an interesting character. I thought Rey was a really interesting character, and I really liked Poe. I wanted to see what they would do with them, and apparently everybody else did because they did nothing with those characters, and it just.
They set them up to bring them back on a Disney Plus special in 20 years. That's what they did. That's what.
The saddest line read I've ever seen out of any film ever is Oscar Isaac saying somehow Palpatine returned. He looks like the most defeated man in the world. Like
they just shot Palpatine returned, but because he had to say that.
Yeah, but it's like they just shot his dog and then said, "Say the line, Oscar." Somehow Palpatine's returned. Just like all the joy is out of him, and it's like, man, why would you? I hate y'all. Why'd y'all do? That guy's a great actor.
What he's really thinking is, you understand that fans don't separate reality from fiction. People are going to blame me personally for this line.
They're going to think I wrote that.
Have you met our fans?
That was an original thought.
They're going to Billy D. Williams me this on the like they did with the betrayal of Han.
That, I think, is why Harrison Ford has done so well to insulate himself for that, because he just refuses to engage with it. He's like, I don't know what a hyperdrive is. I just say the words. Leave me alone. It's like, oh. Catherine Tate was also like that when we saw her at Dragon Con. She was like, don't ask me any technical or lore stuff. I just read the words and ran. She's like, you can ask David Tennant. He knows all that stuff. I don't know any of it.
I think, have you seen Harrison Ford? I think is the most. If you had made it as an actor, Josh, that's who you would have been. because he's.
I
don't
mean,
know.
he's not quite as handsome and as in shape as I am at
Right.
80.
But
He's actually better shape than I am.
personality-wise, you guys are almost identical.
Are we?
Yeah,
No,
he said
No, he's got charisma. I mean, I have the same level of grumpiness, but that's where it ends.
the grumpiness is the thing.
He can get away with it because he's handsome and charismatic. I can't because all I have is the grumpiness.
Have you seen the thing where he's talking about doing the motion capture for the Red Hulk? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Bit where he's like, it's the most degrading and humiliating thing I've ever had to do as an actor, but the check cleared, so I'm okay with it. I'm paraphrasing, but it was pretty close to
and
that.
that dude was in the Star Wars Holiday Special. But I think we're seeing a lot of now just like Hollywood's not even trying; they're relying on nostalgia way too much
Mhm.
to push products. And we've pretty much always had it, but I think we have it even more now. Just them bringing back old TV shows, old movies, and just not making much of an effort to do anything new with it. You know, the new Beverly Hills Cop movie on Netflix, Axel F. I actually watched that when I was visiting some family over the 4th of July
I was
week.
going to ask about it. Is it any good?
It's not Beverly Hills Cop 3 bad, but it's not as good as I would even say
Beverly
the
Hills
first
Cop
two.
2.
Yeah. But it relies a lot on the same jokes and the same things just over and over again. Just Bronson Pinchot coming back as Serge just for a scene, just because we have to.
Right, because we have to have Surge because people like that. And what I don't like about a lot of this nostalgia is that it relies on the audience's like kind of meta understanding of the text more than the text itself.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, oh yeah, everybody loves Surge. So it doesn't matter that if it matters to the story, we have to have him in it because people remember that. It's kind of recursive and like it starts getting copied over a cassette tape too many times.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like you're treading over the same.
That it starts looking like a Roger Corman movie of something that, you know, like, oh, here's this big blockbuster coming out. I'm going to use less money and I'm going to essentially kind of copy this, but without as much quality to cash in on the marketing you're doing for this big film.
Mass audiences eat it up. So I don't see an end in it because,
Yeah.
I mean, I've never liked Deadpool ever. I've always thought he was a terrible character in the comics. I don't like the movies. And I mean, obviously I'm wrong because that movie made like $8 quadrillion its opening weekend. Like people eat it up, but all it is, especially when you start getting like when Marvel tapped in the multiverse, it was like, oh, they found an alternate source of energy for nostalgia now. Because now they can just, we're going to bring all 3 of the Spider-Mans.
And
again,
And Hugh Jackman's back, even though he said he was retiring from the character.
But to your point, every 15-year-old clapped when all 3 Spider-Man showed up on the screen.
Yes.
Right?
And here's the thing. I will say that the Spider-Man No Way Home, it used that nostalgia, but it did it well. Like, I would actually say...
Yeah, I thought that was a really fun film, and it was... But it also, like, essentially, like, had redemptive arc for the Spider-Mans and for the villains, you know, which is something that is often missing in a lot of Marvel films and a lot of Spider-Man films. Like Spider-Man doesn't want to put these people in jails. He wants to help them. Right. There was more meat to it than just, hey, look,
3 Spider-Man.
Yeah, we got the Spider-Mans. How did your Uncle Ben die? Oh, he got run over by a truck.
I shot him. What?
I'm the evil Spider-Man. I'm Dr. Doom Spider-Man.
I think it's also funny that Sony had to let other people do Spider-Man to get really good Spider-Man.
That's funny too. You've seen that the best Comic-Con cosplay I've seen is the Uncle Ben that every time he would see a Spider-Man would lay down and play dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always the Waynes that walk around and do that too.
Anyway.
Pearls everywhere. They should just shoot the Waynes dying once and just use that same scene in every Batman film and just be done with it. Like, it'll be the perennial death of the Waynes. Except it should be the Wayans that are murdered.
I would say there is an old fan kind of mottos. The only people that will stay dead in comics are Thomas and Martha Wayne and Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben. Yeah, fair point. Well, and up until recently, the Punisher's family. But this isn't a comic book podcast, but just let it be known, let it be registered in the Hall of Podcasts. Don't like how they did my boy Frank at the end, of his run. So
is it
I'll start a whole new podcast bitching about how
I've not seen that. Is it like
screwed over? The
Book of Job where God brings back his whole family, but it's not the same family and everything's fine again?
No, they bring back his wife, and she's like, I was going to divorce you, you piece of crap, and don't tell me that you're killing all these people for me. Like, it's basically
so it is like the Book of Job. Okay. I mean,
it was terrible.
I think we've kind of rambled on enough because, we keep veering off topic into our own nostalgic little vignettes.
We're talking about old episodes.
Why you gotta bring up old episodes, Johnny?
It's been many turning of the moon since we've talked about an old episode.
All right, Josh, why don't you go ahead and start us off with a pick of your nostalgia?
Okay. So this is a film that uses nostalgia, like you said, like a crutch or a shortcut. And I hate this movie. I hate this movie.
Oh, hold on. Adam, give them the email address so they can go ahead and start firing off their
right. So this is
Josh.
Jason and I talked when you weren't here about kind of movies that we used to gatekeep the inner sanctum of our friendship. This movie is that for a lot of people, and I've been left out of a lot of things because I hate this movie. Now, if you love this movie, that's fine. But I personally, as for me and mine, anyway, that movie is the 1993 cloying epic of early childhood in the 60s, The Sandlot.
I know you're smart, and I'm proud of you. I want you to make some friends this summer.
Meet Scotty Smalls.
Kale, get it! The kid is a L7 weenie. My life's over.
Man, this is baseball. You gotta stop thinking. You just have fun.
Climb trees, hop fences, get into trouble.
Just stand there and stick your glove out in the air. I'll take care of it.
Now he's in.
Yeah! All right!
With the coolest guys in the neighborhood. They've got the look.
Wendy Peppercorn. Wow. Hey, girls.
They've got the moves. They've got the rap.
Blockhead. Geek. Jerk. Idiot. Moron. You bob for apples in the toilet. And you like it. You play ball like a girl.
I got it!
Oh, no.
But something else has got their ball.
That wasn't my ball.
Dad's father gave it to him. Babe Ruth signed that ball.
Babe Ruth! We gotta get that ball back.
Got any bright ideas?
Initiate retrieval section number 1. Power connect. Come on, help me. It's heavy. Now. Fire! We gotta blow! Mommy, look, a doggy. Ooh, a big doggy.
20th Century Fox presents
Hey guys, it's the Sandlot babies.
You're the ones that making all that racket.
A Lifetime of Adventure.
Come on, Squid, you can do it. Pull through, bud.
The Sandlot, a little piece of paradise, a half a block wide and a whole season long.
Scotty, have you made any friends yet?
I hate everything about
I don't
this
like
movie.
the Sandlot either. That's
and
something you and I have in
90%
common.
of it is because it perpetrates a false nostalgia.
Yeah.
It is so saccharine and cloying and unreal. And the people that love it, it's like, dude, you weren't around in the 60s. You grew up in the 80s. Like, so it's like, it's already like twice removed this kind of fantastical vision of what, like let's play, what is it, like Green Onions? Like, it's everything about it is cliche and terrible. At least some of the stuff now people will agree, like who was the girl that was the lifeguard? Peppercorn or something.
Karen Allen.
And the kid pretends to drown, so she'll like give him mouth to mouth.
Michael Squints Polydorus walked a little taller that day, and we had to tip our hats to him. He was lucky she hadn't beat the crap out of him. We wouldn't have blamed her. What he'd done was sneaky, rotten, and low. And cool. Not another one among us would have ever in a million years, even for $1 million, had the guts to put the move on the lifeguard. He did. He had kissed a woman, and he had kissed her long and good. We got banned from the pool forever that day, but every time we walked by after that, the lifeguard looked down from her tower, right over at Squints, and smiled.
While your lips are close to mine. That at least people acknowledge, hey, that's kind of crappy. That's not up there with like Revenge of the Nerds, but it's, it's in the neighborhood.
It's a preteen version of it.
Yes, yeah. It's the PG version of wearing the Darth Vader mask and assaulting someone. God, I hate that movie. It's almost like a modern updating of Our Gang.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think it suffered from the same, even though it was contemporary, like then they made the movies in the 90s that were,
what
really
to me it is? It's a crappier theme on A Christmas Story. It's those two movies in my mind are kind of like the good and bad of that type of movie. Whereas A Christmas Story, in my mind, I love. It's a 10 out of 10 movie for me. It gets it right, which we didn't. It's actually been a great nostalgia movie to talk about. Had I thought about it, but this is
when done right. What's there to talk about?
Right. But
I would compare it more to Stand By Me than I would.
Yeah. We'll see. And Stand By Me, and I struggled with putting that on my list and have those be the counterbalances because it's the same era, but Stand By Me has the nostalgia. It has the all the ups and downs of being a kid, the unbridled like hope of the future, but also the fear of that and growing up. But it also is in many ways like is unvarnished and like deconstructs the nostalgia because
it does what a good teacher I had for creative writing said once. If you are going to show like the good and naivete of childhood, you also have to show like the malicious side of it as well.
Yes.
And that's what it does. Like the Sandlot does not.
No, I think that's an apt comparison because the Sandlot is like imagine Stand By Me as written and directed by David Evans, who wrote it. Like it would be terrible.
Yeah.
Because it's just again the cloying is the word that it's kind of My Girl to me falls in that kind of same. Like for some reason it's like the 60s, and I guess it's the people that were writing that's when they were kids, but like that has like almost this transformative like magical realism to all these films. It totally ignores like all the stuff. Like I'm sure the 60s were great. There's some great things going on, but there is also some like really horrible things. And if they are present, they're kind of glossed over. They're like, oh yeah, then the fat kid that was the pitcher, he went to Vietnam and died. He was never heard from again.
And they closed a public pool because a black kid tried to come swim at it.
right. But also like that aspect in films like this, and there's almost like it's almost like a genre.
Right.
It's like the saccharine '60s coming of age film. Totally ignored, just pretends like that stuff didn't
Civil
exist.
rights didn't exist, and racism, and yeah. Then again, to those people and those kids, it might not have.
Maybe.
I mean, I'm not saying that. But that's what I'm not saying that justifies that. But for the writers, I mean, I don't even know who Dave Evans is really, but focused on his childhood. So yeah, it is like an autobiographical. Maybe they never had to deal with any kind of questions of civil rights or morality or anything.
Maybe so, and I guess grow up in the South. Maybe it's a glaring omission on whatever.
And also, we're looking at it through a very different lens. You and I have both in times past talked about maybe sometimes we're too hard on.
This movie was made in 1993.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. It wasn't a contemporaneously made 1963. That's right. I forget that for a second. Thank you for correcting me.
They should have been well versed in.
Yeah, Amistad came out that year. I mean, there was no mystery. That was ironically David Evans' next film. It was.
So anyway, like a lot of people love this film. It just to me is just, it's no different than these more modern films that are just totally relying on this almost false nostalgia, because it removes to me the key component of true nostalgia, which is the longing. Because the nostalgia is there, that feeling is there because you can't go back.
Yeah. Because
it's lost. So if you don't have that bitter underpinning to it, then I don't feel like it's real nostalgia. It's just a synthetic drug. It's soma, if you want to get literarily about it.
It's the Walgreens Tylenol versus the name brand Tylenol.
It's a Tylenol before they put the anti-tampering. Which
There's
also occurred in 1993. No, it was earlier than that. Good for Tylenol for surviving that, man. All you gotta do is put some plastic on this bottle and you didn't, and a bunch of people died. Oh, that won't happen again. All right.
Good for Boeing make a plane that the door doesn't fly off. Good for them.
This plane's door didn't fly off.
I flew recently, and it was on a 737.
They made you hold it shut.
I had to keep that information away from one of the people I was flying with because she was already concerned about flying.
Well, as we speak, there's still astronauts stuck in space because they took a Boeing. And then God help them if they have to take a Tesla down.
Allegedly.
Yeah, your space program's done when you have to get a taxi from the. It's like an Uber driver calling Lyft. You're done for. This episode will age very fine, like nostalgia. So, Jason, what are your thoughts on The Sandlot? You like that movie?
I was very indifferent to it. I don't hate it like you do, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of it either. It was something that they played in the study periods at school when the teachers didn't want to work right before the end of the term. It was something that was there, but I think there are better films like that are set in the 50s and early 60s
and even that deal with baseball.
Yeah, no, it's just that, like we said about Stand By Me, that actually deals with both the good and the bad of childhood. That was I think the great thing of Stand By Me, these kids, they had problems with their parents. One was abusive. The main character, his older brother had died, so he's dealing with his parents shutting down, losing their shot. It has real emotion to it. And this other one is, I stole my stepdad's baseball.
Right. Well, yeah, Stand By Me deals with real people. They're young, but they're real people. Whereas Sandlot, they're characters. They're not fully realized because, yeah, it's like, oh, baseball. I like the baseball. It's everything. Oh, I want to kiss Wendy Peppercorn. It's everything. It's like, dude, there's more. Kids are multidimensional. And the second you start, like, idealizing them, your story suffers.
I think a good way to kind of like prove that dynamic is the fact that kid in that scene, one of the ways that the director and the crew got him to actually, because the kids were rambunctious and hard to control. And so one of the ways they got him under control to do scenes is they gave him copies of Playboy.
That is more interesting than the film.
Yes. And I think I was too old, but that I was already, a teenager. I was driving.
Yeah.
By the time that movie came out. So, I can understand maybe if you're younger and see that film, it might affect you a little bit. But by that point, I was well past that.
You were too jaded by the world.
Yeah. We're getting into the point where I'm watching The Crow. And stuff like that. It was a transition period for me.
I think the other thing I don't like about it is that, again, I say this probably every podcast, I don't like people that like the movie. They're like, you're killing me, Smalls. You're like, oh, God. Please quit quoting
Once again,
that.
Josh loves his own references.
Yes.
But not other people's.
Yeah, and again, I'm totally aware that I suck just as much as everybody else. Like I'm under no delusion. It's awful. I know people don't like it when I do it. I can't help it. We're wired that way.
It depends, because you and I think we've admitted this before, like there'll be times when I just need to, like, if something's like get me at work something, I'll just send a text to Josh. That's a reference that I know only he's going to get when I send it.
It's our secret code. It's how we tell each other that our shoes are tight.
My shoes hurt too, Josh.
So Adam didn't even know. Maybe one day we'll let you in.
I don't need to know all your Larry Craig secrets, man. That's between that's between you and Jason. That's fine.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the whole movie is we play baseball. I lost my dad's baseball to a mean dog. It wasn't a mean dog. Oh my God, this guy was famous and he has a better baseball. And it was his stepdad too. I think wasn't it Dennis Leary?
Yeah, I think so. Here's the actual odd thing about it that collectors will know, like of sports memorabilia. The climactic part of the story is that they lose their baseball. He goes and gets one off his stepdad's shelf. It turns out to be autographed by Babe Ruth. And so they hit it over the fence, and the dog tears it up, and James Earl Jones lives there, and he was like a bat boy or something for that team, and so he has a ball signed by the entire team. And so that's supposed to be, he presents this to his stepdad as, a mea culpa and all that kind of stuff, and it's supposed to be right. Here's the thing that collectors that watch that movie will tell you is like, that ball, because of all the other signatures, is actually worth less than just a Babe Ruth signed ball. I had to listen to a guy, and that's probably why I'm not a fan of the movie. I had to listen to a guy like explain that to me one time. Oh, here's two things I don't like: The Sandlot and people talking about baseball
and baseball collections. I long for a time before this conversation. That's my nostalgia.
All right, so I think we've pissed off people enough by not liking The Sandlot. Adam, what's your nostalgia film?
So my nostalgia film is Superbad, which is
your decision is your decision.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell us what your movie is.
That's a pun.
Well played, sir. It is the Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg vehicle, which is semi-autobiographical.
Thanks for taking him, Seth.
No problem.
I can't imagine what you're going to do without each other next year. Evan told me you didn't get into Dartmouth. You going to miss each other?
No, I don't miss each other.
Yeah, I'm going to cry myself to sleep every night.
Me too.
When I'm out partying.
Go to school, boys.
Bye. Take care of those.
I never see you at parties or anything.
Saturday was actually a crazy night for me. Seth's parents were throwing this party, like a get-together, cocktail casual.
Wow.
And then we went to a nightclub.
You got in?
We got right in.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
You would have loved it.
My brand new fake ID.
Wait, you changed your name to McLovin?
Doesn't even have a first name. It just says McLovin.
This guy's either going to think, here's another kid with a fake ID, or here's McLovin, the 25-year-old Hawaiian organ donor.
I am McLovin. Hello, Mindy.
Okay. I'm going to need to see some identification.
Makes me feel young again.
Ethnically, was he like
What?
African?
Was he African? No, he was like you.
He's Jewish. So we have an African Jew wearing a hoodie.
Tonight is our last party as high school people. You know when you hear girls saying like, oh, I was so gone last night, I shouldn't have slept with that guy. We could be that mistake.
Engage.
Hey, Becca.
You sick
I love you.
I love you.
Why don't we say that every day? Why can't we say it more often?
I just want to go to the rooftops and scream, I love my best friend Evan. Boop. You're like the coolest person that's ever talked to me, and I blew it.
Come on, you didn't blow it. I think maybe...
Among its claims is that it used like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and American Graffiti, and there was Dazed and Confused were its inspirations, which are all classic nostalgia as well. It's interesting because I think the 60s and when I thought this, I went the same direction as you guys. I know we haven't talked about Josh's movies yet, but for most of what I think of immediately when I think of a nostalgia piece is a thing made in the 80s that took place in the 50s, right? That's immediately where my brain went. Or a thing in the 90s that took place in the 60s. But that kind of time frame. Well, this was made in like early 2000s, like 2007, 8, somewhere in there, about the late 90s. But it still fits that nostalgia theme because it also continues to make sense for people who were graduating in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. And it works on the level because it is sort of semi-autobiographical in that Seth and Evan are the main characters, and it's kind of about them. But it's all about their quest to have sex, essentially. Which,
like most teen sex comedies. I mean, 90%, and I don't know so much anymore, but the traditional teen sex comedy is. Right.
It's okay as a film, I guess. It's it ages poorly. I wouldn't say it's a great movie.
That's pretty much how I would. The film was good. It wasn't terrible. I remember kind of like it's one of those things that's a little too close to my time, but a little too late. So like
it just missed the mark.
Right.
I'm a little younger than you, so it's right on the key for me.
Right. So for me, it was like almost there, so it was a bit frustrating. What was funny, though, and what I do have nostalgia about this film is that we get a run of like really bad, like depressing films that my wife and I went and saw, like In Bruges. We saw that. I was like, oh my God.
I was so excited for that movie when it came out.
Every film had like a child murder. And then we went and saw Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and I saw that with my mom. That was the first film that like we'd seen in forever that was like not just bleak and nihilistic. And my wife loved it because like I was sitting right next to my mom in that film, and and my mom cracked up the whole time, and I was like the one that was embarrassed. We took her to see Superbad.
Oh, and that's funny.
My mom loved. And I learned this later in life. She loved raunchy comedies.
Well, there you go.
And was sitting there with a 70-year-old woman cackling
at penis jokes.
penis jokes and Superbad, and it's your mom.
Oh, that's funny.
Like I was mortified as an adult, but but now I look
Wait a minute,
back on it,
I did
that's
that,
hilarious.
and you grounded me.
There were some conversations after Superbad that was like, you didn't think that was really funny when you weren't laughing quite so hard in 1991.
So there's a line in Ebert's review of this movie that really encapsulates it to me. And he says, in its very raunchiness, it finds its truth, because if you know nothing about sex, how can you be tasteful and sophisticated on the subject? I haven't watched it in, 10 years plus, right? But I rewatched it in preparation for this. And I watched it with my wife, who also would probably watch it together the first, like when it came out or whatever. And anyway, I was like, that's really the way high school guys are, or at least were back when I was in high school. Like, every conversation is about trying to get laid.
What? No, yeah, but the dialogue and everything, it is very truthful, yes, in that regard.
And the profanity was in service to the film. It wasn't just like profane to be profane.
Right. No, it's very true to life. It's also a film that, what year did it come out?
2007.
So almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, I certainly didn't have kids then when it came out, and now I've got a teenager and a preteen. It reads much differently now.
There's that. I haven't gotten there yet, but that was where
especially when your kids are female, you're like, oh no. It's like it becomes more of a horror film. You're like, Michael Cera, you stay away. Don't you dare sing These Eyes. I will punch you.
I think that like my brother, had a conversation because he had two girls, and the whole thing, you don't trust me. He's like, hold on, no, it's not you I don't trust. Right. It's the guys, because I remember being a teenager.
Yes. Yeah. That is a difficulty of,
and it's full of debauchery and very near criminal activity or overtly criminal activity. But
there's also the awkwardness.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just saying that for any teenagers who happen to listen to their podcast, this is not a emulate this behavior type movie.
Yeah. Some of it reads very true to life, like the scene where he's singing the Guess Who song, and the dudes are like all like stoned out of their gourds, and they're like scared to death and like way out of their depth, that scene, like. Especially sitting next to my mom, I was like, "This is too much. This is too real."
When you were trapped in a basement with a bunch of junkies, you were.
Look, man, life is weird. I would just say that scene was
too close to home.
Like oddly specific.
There are no unique experiences, Josh.
It is amazing how many shared experiences people can have. Be completely disconnected from each other, but there are certain experiences that almost everyone will have, being a teenager, like in the 90s, just simply because of the culture.
there was a universality that was, and we talked about, like, I don't understand how some of this stuff either is transmitted or just how it almost makes you believe in a collective unconscious, because it's like we talked before about being on the playground and talking about Obi-Wan and Vader's fight at the volcano, like when right after Return of the Jedi came out, and like there's no internet, there's no expanded, like we just all knew that's what happened, and then it's like I don't know if like Lucas heard that, and his kids on this playground talking about that sounds good. Or if it was just like it just was like, and it was like never like the Mustafar thing was never in doubt, but it's like nowhere. Like I don't know how, like Bloody Mary and stuff. Like how all this stuff
Marilyn Manson's ribs before the internet.
The S that everyone drew, that everybody
the special S, the cool S.
Yeah, it's really freaky. And so like when you see a film like of somebody that grew up like around your time, you're like, and they're like from California or something,
Vancouver's where it takes place. But so one thing, we talked about how like a lot of an example would be Stranger Things, how they get the clothes wrong. So one of the interesting things about
they get a lot wrong. But
Superbad was that it takes place.
That first season they got right.
Yeah, but after that they kind of got wonky. But so Superbad is alleged to take place in the late 90s. But everything is heavily influenced by 70s and 80s culture, as it was in the late 90s. And they talk about the costuming in this if you go read it in depth. I've done way more research on this movie than I ever would otherwise. But the costumers like kids in the late 90s dressed like the 70s. I was like, that is true.
Yeah. The 70s came back in vogue.
Yeah. And so
in the 90s, yeah.
That was so that's like the costuming theme of that. And it's kind of, and like they're listening to a lot of disco. Like that's a big running theme of the movie is that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I being a little bit older, I was kind of neo hippie,
right?
Tie dye, and then the grunge thing, but that also the grunge aesthetic was still had kind of a almost 70s vibe to it with the flannel and stuff, and that's why when Jason mentioned Jinkos at the beginning, that was my first clue that I was getting old. Even though I was like just in my 20s, I was like, "Wow, what the hell? You're a year younger than me, and you're wearing like these balloon pant."
Oh, I love my Jinkos, man.
You were a Jinko baby?
I was allowed to get 2 pair a year, and when the bottoms wore out, that was just like tough cookies. I wasn't getting any because they were so expensive. Like,
Did you get a pacifier too? Did you carry one around?
No, I wasn't that kid.
That was a drug thing, I think.
Yeah, I was too straight for that. I was like too square. I wasn't like.
Did you have the wallet with the chain on it?
I did have that though. Yes.
He just had Jinkos and chain wallets. So like the waist down, he was like hip, and like top up, he was wearing like a button-up shirt with a collar.
It was a very short phase because but no, I did.
I thought you wore a tie to school.
That's what I was about to say. That was the next phase.
You're full of lies. You're full of lies, man. Get your story straight.
Believe me or don't. But I did have Jinkos.
You were wearing ties with your Jinkos.
I did wear ties with my Jinkos. I actually did do that for a while. I was the most popular kid in school. Let me tell you, they lined up for my autograph on every morning.
I bought a pair of Jinkos once, but I went skydiving. I just flared them out
like Super Squirrel. You just
Adam. I think that your bullying may have been justified.
Oh no, it was for sure. Yeah, no,
they beat that out of you that was for your own good. Those are heroes.
They were crying, I don't want to do this, for God's sake.
I did recently revisit my hometown, and in the town square, there was a statue of my bully.
He's holding up a torn pair of Jinkos in one hand and an American flag in the other.
That's right, yeah.
We defeated the Juggalos here.
Right. He ran at him out on a rail.
flung 9-inch nail CDs at him as he fled.
And that was the most rambunctious 90-year-old man Adam had ever seen.
It was the high school janitor. You're gonna get a beating.
The same janitor that was in the Nirvana video. It smells like Teen Spirit.
Anyway, I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, it's it is to me was nostalgic in a period.
Well, what's interesting is a lot of these films have a stick-to-itiveness of it because like McLovin is part of the cultural lexicon from now. But the whole fake ID thing was like legit.
Yeah, I never did that either. I was too square for that.
When I was like 13, I think. So I think you could drink in Louisiana at 18 at that point. Our licenses were not hard to crack, but I figured that you could make a copy and then get the ink off the copy and paste it over the your birth date. So you could turn a 3 into an 8 pretty easily. And I always thought I was like MacGyver, So I made fake IDs for my brother and all of his friends.
With that, just again for the record, with the real ID legislation, that is now a felony.
I'm sure it was pretty darn illegal back then.
Look, in Mississippi, you got caught with fake ID, they'd take it from you, and they'd probably yell at you and take you to your parents' house. Now, that's like real time even for a juvie.
What's funny is this was pre-internet. I don't know how I figured out how to do this, but I did it with like laminate paper and making copies. Nobody stopped me, and they worked. So
there you go. Yeah, it's a different.
I think it was just plausible deniability at that point.
Yeah, my brother's still in jail for the murders he committed with that guy.
Well, or it could be like in Superbad, where the cops are like, "You think we thought that ID was real?" Of course we.
No, Josh just made a joke, and I just need clarification. Your brother murdered people with the fake ID,
like a ninja star.
It was the weapon. Yeah.
That's why they warned him. They didn't want to buy beer. They just filed off the edges.
Yeah, I worked so hard on those things. They used them as weapons. So I felt like Oppenheimer.
Wait, you're going to use this to hurt people? I thought this was a thought experiment.
Yeah, kids don't do that.
Yeah,
it's harder to do now anyway.
Yeah, you wouldn't get away with it. And
don't use your fake IDs as throwing stars, kids.
Look, I was thwarted when they turned, like, if you were under 18 or something, they printed all your stuff on the side, so it was like long ways. Simple solution.
Did you have to go to the public library to use the laminator?
No. When I'd go to my dad's office to steal nitrous, I just used his copier and stuff.
Oh, buddy.
What he didn't tell you is he would steal the nitrous in his pants. Like, that was the only way he could figure out how to do it.
That's what he used those Jicos for.
He put some rubber bands on the ends of bungee cord.
Tie him up like a giant balloon.
What's funny is it never occurred to me to steal. My dad was a dentist. It never occurred to me to steal his nitrous. And then, like, when I was in college, like, he mentioned he had a new, like, assistant or something. He's like, man, our nitrogen bill is just going through the roof. And I was like, let me tell you something, Dad. I'm gonna hold
this. Is this the assistant that's going to all the Fish concerts?
Yeah, I was like, does she have a key to the office? Yeah, I was like, yeah, she's stealing nitrous, dude. No, I was like, oh yeah. She come in with a lot of balloons.
Superbad does feel authentic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it doesn't land with me, but I don't doubt its authenticity versus like Sandlot.
Sandlot,
yeah.
So
to Jason's point, it has the good with the bad.
Yes.
It's super bad,
and it ties up. It's it's over the course of what a 2-day period, a 3-day period. It follows these teenagers as they try to get to this party, and they got to get this alcohol, and then it goes badly, and they. Remember, I told like one of my rules is you never go to like I've told my kids like you never go to the third place. Like
I thought that was just with hippies. Never go to third location with hippies.
But there's like always this like cascade of events, right? And but to your point, like I knew I was too nerdy to be these kids, but I knew people who did this stuff, and it for sure was real.
Like you said, there's that awkwardness. Like
that was definitely authentic.
Yeah, I mean, just with Michael Cera's character, when someone like bumps him and his fist goes out and he punches the girl in the breast, and it's like that's not something somebody came up with,
right? Well, that's the thing. Like every incident that occurs, you're like, that's not a flight of fancy. That actually happened.
Right.
There's that 100% happened.
Yes.
And I think, it's very much like the Jared Hess films. Like, you're just like, yeah.
This is too specific to be made up.
Yeah.
Yes.
But not with that, but like I think, Michael Cera at that time especially had the awkward teen shtick down. And
he still does now that he's in his 50s. It's just creepier now.
Yeah, that last season of Arrested Development did not land at all. But like I said, he portrayed that awkwardness of that area because if you're not already in one of those cliques, if you're one of those outsider guys like they were,
well, I've not seen you at any of the parties, so I've been really busy doing what?
Yeah, exactly. But you know, those kind of friendships that they form, those are real friendships that people have when you find that other outsider and you connect.
I can't believe you saved me. You saved me. Can't believe I owe you so much. You cared. I love you. I love you, man.
I love you. I love you. I'm not even embarrassed to say it. I love you.
I'm not embarrassed.
Love you.
I love you. It's like, why don't we say that every day? Why can't we say it more often?
I just love you. I just want to go to the rooftops and scream, I love my best friend Evan.
We should go up on my roof.
For sure.
Like when you went away for Easter on your vacation. Like, I missed you.
I missed you too.
I want the world to know. It's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Boop, boop, boop.
A lot of people think that nerds are very, like...
monolithic.
Well, yeah, monolithic and square and everything. But I knew a lot of nerds that got tore up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they portrayed that as well.
And they also portrayed, like, you know, the outsider even from outsiders. Because, like, we said there, I mean, growing up, and they did a very good job of showing that there are, even within, like, we had the band kids. And even within the band kids, they were, like, the super cool band kids and the other band. But, like, I was outside. I wasn't even a band kid, you know? So, like, I got to be, like, othered by the band kids. Yeah. So, like, when you did find those people, kind of like the Lost, you know, the clickless. And so you form an alliance, and you end up with the strangest people, and that is both good and terrifying.
I will say the one thing about my childhood that was not reflecting that, even though it was definitely on the outside, because grew up in a rural town in the South. Thursdays was junior high football. Friday was high school football, and I went to neither of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're out of a group right there.
Yeah.
But we were also a college town. And so that means connecting up with like the outsiders that have been imported from other towns. And so you come up with this really weird clique.
I worked at the public library in high school.
Okay.
And those were my people, were the book nerds that came in, and they would play. We didn't have like a comic book store, so they would come in and play Magic, and it was that kind of scene. Those were my people. So yeah, the outsider's outsider.
Well, and that's that we've talked about the chip on my shoulder about some nerdy stuff. I think that's the genesis of it, because my outsider of outsiders group, like that was the tie that bound us, was like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, and like in really nerdy stuff and Star Trek. So when suddenly it becomes cool and popular, I'm like, man, like I was ousted for this. I was thrown off the island, and now you're like, oh, but it turns out it's cool, but you're still not cool. Like,
you were cool all along. They just now realized it. That's the way I interpret it.
No. I had a summer of, I had about half a year of being cool, and I hang on to that. Like,
we are so cool, trend setting, that we have our own podcast. How many people can say that, Josh?
Thousands. Yeah, and it's like at Christmas every once in a while, every other year. So I was like, "You still doing that podcast?"
That's the weird outsider D&D playing to middle-aged podcast pipeline, is what that.
Yeah, I mean, I think still playing D&D in your 40s is that pipeline.
No, that's come back around too. I have normies at work who are talking about how they have a regular D&D group, and these are people who would have beat the hell out of me in high school. So I got that.
These are people that would beat the hell out of you now
if we didn't work remote. Yeah, actually. Fair point.
Tell him you play Torg and see what happens.
Yeah, no.
And you'll be othered again.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. I'm like, I like that stuff too. Let me tell you about my passion. And they're like, you can see the eyes glaze over and they realize, oh no, he's not one of us. He's one of them.
Wait, what? Is he picking up a toolbox with us? These are all my miniatures that I've painted.
This past week, I sent I think you should leave sketch to one of my coworkers, and I might as well have just showed it to my wife. It's the same reaction, and I was like, again, how is this not hitting with you? Like, this is it's driving me mad.
As we talked the last episode, Josh, there needs to be stages before you get to that.
I thought we were
you'd gotten there. Yeah.
I thought Coffin Flop would have gone over better than it did. It doesn't matter if we show them naked because they ain't got no soul.
All right, so we're going to put a pause on the conversation right there and come back in a couple of weeks and finish this discussion about nostalgia, where we'll talk about movies like American Graffiti, Back to the Future, and the new Ghostbusters movie. Is Josh going to talk crap about them like he did The Sandlot? There's only one way to find out. Join us in 2 weeks. Until then, if you want to get in contact with us, you can always email us at brickedpit@gmail.com or look for us on Facebook and X, The Brick Pit Podcast. Until then, this is The Brick Pit signing off.